I've been a JRN member since the beginning at 2005, and how it all started is just very, very interesting.
I lived in Japan for 5 years, from 1994 to almost 2000. So when I came back to America in 2000, I didn't know where I was going to be able to go to communicate in Japanese and to have that connection with Japan. I always had in the back of my mind that a Japanese group, a networking group of some sort, would be a good way for me to continue to feel like I have a connection to Japan.
I know for a fact that what Erik missed the most was he had no Japanese community. So he wanted to create a group of people that he could be with, spend time with, have Japanese friends and things like that. He spent about 5 years in Japan and had developed many Japanese friendships, but he felt fairly isolated from the Japanese community when he came back to the United States.
So I had this format that I had learned in another networking group, but I didn't have any connections to Japan, so I just thought, oh, it'd be nice someday.
When I first came into this business about 10 years ago, networking at every possible opportunity that I could, there were existing Japanese business organizations, but I just didn't feel completely satisfied with them because I wanted an organization where business would be the top priority. So one day, in the course of just my normal networking, I ran into Erik Flexner's business coach. When he found out that I could speak Japanese, he said, "Glenn, I have the perfect guy I want to introduce you to. His name is Erik Flexner. He's one of my coaching clients, and he speaks Japanese. You gotta meet."
And then in 2005, I was introduced to Glenn Michael because he was a Japanese-speaking American.
Sat down with him, talked to him for a little while, and within literally just a few minutes, we agreed to attempt to create a Japanese business networking group.
It dawned on me, here's a guy who knows a lot of people in the Japanese community, in Torrance and all around. He was starting his own business, I was starting my own business right around 2005. We were young and fresh and ready to go, and I saw him and I said, you know, this is a guy who could bring the people, and I can bring the system.
So Erik fortunately knew the system. So he had been involved in an organization called LaTev, and he had some ideas about how these networking groups function. And then he also brought in Takai, who's a mortgage broker, and his assistant as well.
日本語、それから英語を話せるバイリンガルのグループ、ネットワーキンググループをどうしても作りたい。その一員となって一緒にやらないかっていうのがほとんどの内容でした。
Then we had our first meeting across the street from Erik Flexner's office at a Mexican restaurant over drinks and Mexican food, and what we decided to do was to invite 10 of our friends that were English Japanese bilingual to the first official meeting and see how it would go from there.
The requirement before we even started was we needed to have at least 10 people before we even start getting together regularly, because that was the system that I had learned. You had to have 10 people for it to, otherwise it tends to not last. And when we finally got our 10 people, we met in a real estate office in Brentwood. That was the first meeting of the JRN, was a real estate office in Brentwood where there was terrible parking, and ultimately we got kicked out early because they needed the room.
ブレンドウッドで皆さんパーキングがないので、たくさんの方がティケットを取られたりだとか、初めはそんな形でスタートしました。
And the first JRN meeting that we had actually had a really good turnout. And some of the other kind of original members that showed up to those first meetings, some of them are still with us today. So I believe Kazuya Yamaguchi was at that first meeting. I know that Reiko Tamura was at that first meeting, although it took many years for her to become a JRN member. She's the current president of the organization, and a number of other folks.
続いて活気あふれる法人ビジネス界の話題です。現在30人の会員で組織するビジネスネットワーク JRN がオープンハウスを開催しました。今月6日午前7時、夜明けとともに JRN ジャパンレファレルネットワークのオープンハウスは始まり、およそ90人のビジネス関係者が参加しました。ミーティングでは JRN がどのような仕組みで作用しているか、会員の代表による寸劇などで紹介されました。 JRN は去年8月に発足した日米豪バイリンガルのビジネスネットワークです。現在会員は30人、1業種につき1社が加入し、会員相互の間で仕事を紹介し合い、売上を上げていっているもので、今年に入ってこれまでの売上高は$24,400、1社あたりにすると$8,000のビジネスが成立しているということです。
ボーナスの部分でも2倍3倍というようなお仕事が JRN から入ってきます。で、先ほども言ったように一つのメリットっていうのは、私が例えば何かの形で働けない時も29人他のメンバーがいつも私の代わりに営業してくれてるっていうことですから、言った通りその時本当に24ミリオンっていうたくさんの大きな銀行にメリットを持ってきたそのお仕事です。で、周りのメンバーからのその紹介によって仕事が発生しましたんで、本当にこのグループなんて言うんでしょう、強いなと思ってます。
ネットワークが広がってビジネス上の悩みがですねすぐに解決できるようになったということですね。で、私が直接存じ上げているメンバーの方が知らなくてもですね、例えばメンバーの人にメーリングリストにですねメールを送るとですね、その人のさらに知り合いの方を連れてきてくださってですね、私の悩みを解決してくれるというような効果もありますので、非常にそのネットワークが広がったというのは良かったですね。はい、
仕事だけじゃなくてね、儲けだけじゃなくて、お互い、コミュニティを、ね、日本人とアメリカ人のコミュニティを、だんだん大きなコミュニティを作りたいなという期待はしてます。ここでロサンゼルスで
JRN のビジネスミーティングは毎週金曜日、会員が最も参加しやすい出勤前午前7時から行われていて、ビジネスの拡張につながるだけに活気に満ちた話し合いが行われているという。
それでは続いての話題です。朝7時に集まる真剣仕事人たちの話題です。金曜日の朝7時、トーランスのホテルにスーツ姿の人々が続々と入っていきます。集まったのは150人の日英バイリンガルビジネスマンです。この日行われたのはバイリンガルビジネスネットワーク JRN のメンバー募集のためのオープンハウスです。JRN はメンバー間での仕事紹介を目的として2005年に発足。業種が重ならないという条件のもと、現在は26人が在籍。毎週金曜日の朝にミーティングを行っています。
すごく素晴らしいリファラルをいただきまして、$7 millionのお客さんを紹介してもらって。
This group is specifically focused on generating revenue through referrals, qualified referrals to the members of the group. So this is one of the key tools to really survive, and not just survive, but thrive and grow.
JRN は今後メンバーを増やし、将来的には日本でも活動していきたいということです。JRN は毎週金曜日の朝7時から8時半までミーティングを行っています。興味のある方はこちらのホームページをご覧ください。
はい、JRN のいいところは毎週金曜日みんな集まって元気いっぱいでやる気で皆さんで一丸となってですね、皆さんのためにお役に立てるように頑張っているところだと思います。
JRN の魅力は、もうメンバーになって 7,8 年なんですけど、いろんな方と知り合えるということです。
JRN の魅力は全員がうちの会社、みんながみんなの営業マンになってくれる。一生懸命ポジティブにみんなでビジネスのボリュームを上げようと、すごくポジティブなビジネスメンバーです。
JRN の魅力はそうですね、いろいろなリファーをいただいて、実質的な収入になっております。
JRN の魅力ですね、全然違う職業の方たちと接触できることで、ワンストップショップです。いろんな弁護士さんと気楽にご相談できたり、全く違う仕事の方たちなのでいろんな情報を交換できる、とても勉強になるグループで、とても皆さんいつも元気がありますのでパワーをいただいてます。
JRN はですね、非常に素晴らしいネットワークを持っております。皆様が疑問に思うこと、知りたいこと全て解決する力を持っておりますので、ぜひご利用いただければと思います。
JRN のいいところは、皆さんそれぞれ、いろんなリソースを持っていらっしゃって、それをメンバーでお互いにシェアして、成功できるように助け合っている、そこが一番いいところだと思います。
JRN の魅力というのはもう本当に非常にいろんな個性のある方で、また能力のある方で、そういった方でもう本当に頑張っている方といろんなご縁ができて、ビジネスを紹介し合えるというのが大変素晴らしいと思います。
JRN の魅力は、いろんな他の企業のどういったことをされているかというのは勉強になります。
JRN に入って1年半ほどですが、皆さんで真剣に皆さんのビジネスを紹介し合う、この真剣な姿は私は JRN 大好きです。
JRN の魅力はみんなが仲良しであるっていうことで、毎週毎週、集まることによって信用と、尊重ですよねのもとに、のもとで、ご紹介、お客さんをご紹介できるっていうところがいいところです。
JRN の魅力は、朝6時に金曜日起きないといけないこと、7時から毎週金曜日ミーティングがあります。あと遅刻をしすぎたり、リファーラルを上げられないと、追い出されること、この辺が魅力だと思います。いつも皆さんから元気をもらってます。
Walk on, walk on with hope in your heart, and you never walk alone. You never walk alone. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you never walk alone.
JRN はもう本当にビジネス目的ではなくて、どんなに仲いいお友達でもやはり皆さん忙しくってお仕事が忙しくて家族もあって1週間に1回顔を合わせるっていうのはすごい難しいんですが、JRN に入っていると皆さんと1週間に1回もうすごい絆ができます。あとは信頼感、あとは本当にお友達としてとても仲良くなれるので、もうJRN はもう私にとって LA のコミュニティと思ってずーっと続けていこうと思ってます。
Right around the time when the group was starting, 2005, I got engaged. I got engaged in April, and we started the group in July. And so a lot of changes were happening for me at that time. We bought a house in July of that year too. So July, we bought our house and the JRN started. And so it was a time of a lot of change and excitement and growth. And when I got married, the JRN got together $500 secretly and gave it to me as a wedding gift, and I just couldn't believe it. I've never received a gift like that before, and I couldn't believe that this group of people were so generous and, thoughtful. So that just really bonded me to the group. How thoughtful and how much of a family it had turned out to be. It's not just all about business. And I think the family aspect of it is what keeps people coming back. For me, the JRN has been a lesson in life. It was born from an idea of connecting people. And it got to the point where, I had been president for a while, and then Glenn had been president for a while, and for a total of the first 6 years, 3 years and 3 years. And we didn't necessarily want to be president all the time, but we also wanted it to work. And at the time, there was a lot of resistance from the Japanese members, which were 95% of the group, that a Japanese person shouldn't be a president. Should not. And that was a fairly, people were thinking that at the time. People were saying it at the board meetings. And but we had the perfect guy, and that was Yamaguchi-san. And he was willing to do it. And so the transition was smooth and easy, and it wasn't any issue. And there have been many leaders since then, and the leadership is always different. And it's been a lesson to me to just let go and surrender and let it blossom without me poking at it. I had my time, and I did the best I could. And now it's somebody else's time to put their own gifts into the position and into what that year will look like. And so, I have just grown as a person, watching, and surrendering and knowing that the more I mess with it, that's not going to make it better. It needs to be alive on its own. And it really has blossomed. Watching it, it's better now than it was last year, and it's better last year than it was the year before, and I just think it's getting better and better every year on its own, through just all the personalities and energy that come into it. It's not something that you could necessarily break down into pieces. It's the whole, the whole is greater than its parts. So, yeah.
Well, but you laid out the foundation, obviously.
Yeah, so the rules were needed, right? And then the rules, the rules were resisted at the beginning because there's a lot of rules. And people would resist the 4-tip minimum. They would resist the excused absences and why do I have to report my income, and so those first few years required a lot of strength in saying no exceptions, and look, this is how we do it, and it has to be this way, and if one person does it, the rest start to do it, and then it falls apart, so it just have to be this way, and you know, so there were lots of requests for exceptions at the beginning. So many requests. Well, in this case, what do we do? And what about in this case? And that's why the rules were necessary. And as long as we had the rules in front of us at the board meeting, we could just go, that's what we have to do. And generally, the idea was always what is in the best interest of the spirit of the JRN, not in the best interest of any particular member. But the bigger energy that flows through the group when everybody is happy and making money and you know, all those things that have to happen for us to all remain together. It's a little bit of a soup, you know. And the great thing about it now going into 10 years is that we've had 10 years of people coming and going, and the ones that are really high quality ingredients, those are still in the soup, you know? So it's a really high quality soup. You know, it tastes good.
More flavor.
Yeah, exactly.
Year by year.
Yeah, more flavor year by year. It makes my heart shine, and full of pride to know that I was a part of something that affects so many people, not just the members of the group, but their families. You know, it really is a wonderful social experiment.
Country roads take me home to the place where I belong, West Virginia, mountain mama.